The marble headstone gleamed in the pale winter light, my father's name etched deep into the cold surface. I placed white roses against it, my fingers lingering on the frozen stone longer than necessary. Snow dusted my shoulders as I knelt there, alone with my grief and something darker brewing beneath it. "I miss you, Dad," I whispered, "and I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." My phone vibrated in my pocket, my mother, right on cue. I let it ring 4 times before answering, steeling myself for the voice that had shaped my entire life for better and worse. "Mia, where are you? We need to talk about the house." Her tone was clipped, urgent in that way that had always made me drop everything to respond. "I'm at Dad's grave." I watched my breath form clouds in the frigid Denver air. "It's been 6 months today." A pause, then, "Well, when you're done, we need to discuss finances. It's important." No acknowledgement of the date, no question about how I was holding up, just the usual: my mother's needs, my mother's emergencies, my mother's priorities. "I'll call you back," I said, and hung up before she could protest. At 32, I was finally learning that power can be as simple as ending a conversation. Small victories. I brushed snow from my knees and took one last look at my father's grave. Dad had been the buffer between me and my mother's favoritism, though he'd never confronted her about it directly. He'd been a kind man, but conflict avoidant to a fault, a trait I'd inherited until recently. My sister Ashley was the golden child, spontaneous, charming, irresponsible. I was the reliable one, the financial analyst, the responsible daughter who'd help Mom manage the beach house and family finances now that Dad was gone. The one who would understand when college funds went to Ashley's gap years abroad. The one who wouldn't mind working through Christmas while my sister was gifted first-class tickets to Aspen. 6 months ago, at the reading of Dad's will, my mother's mask had slipped. Dad had left me $600,000 outright, money he'd saved separately from their joint accounts, money my mother couldn't touch. Her face had twisted into something ugly when the lawyer read that part. Ashley had gasped, then quickly covered it with a cough. "He knew you'd be responsible with it," Mom had said later, her smile tight. "Ashley needs more guidance with money. That's why the house is in a trust for all of us to share." That beach house in Nantucket, my father's pride and joy, was now supposedly in need of major repairs. My mother had been calling weekly with updates on costs, suggestions about pooling resources. As I drove home from the cemetery, I couldn't stop thinking about those resources and how one-directional they always seemed to flow in my family. 2 days later, I was at my desk reviewing client portfolios when Jenna called. We'd been friends since college, but had drifted apart in recent years, my fault mostly. Family obligations had a way of consuming my free time. "Mia Thompson, we need drinks. Tonight, no excuses." I smiled, already preparing to decline. "I have that family financial meeting tomorrow and—" "That's exactly why you need drinks tonight. One gin and tonic won't destroy your spreadsheets." I hesitated. "Did I tell you about the meeting?" "You mentioned it 3 weeks ago. I pay attention, unlike some people in your life. 7 o'clock, that new place on 17th. That night, sitting across from Jenna in a dimly lit bar, I felt a strange sensation, something like freedom. We caught up on careers, dating disasters, and finally, inevitably, family. "So what's this financial meeting about?" Jenna asked, stirring her martini. I sighed. "The beach house needs repairs. Roof, foundation, the works, at least that's what my mother says. And she wants your inheritance." It wasn't a question. Jenna had always seen through my family's dynamics with unnerving clarity. "Probably," she keeps emphasizing, "family responsibility and what your father would have wanted." Jenna set down her glass with a sharp click. "Your father wanted you to have that money. That's why he left it to you separately." "I know, but—" "No buts, and by the way, I ran into Ashley last weekend." My stomach tightened. "Where?" "Bridal shop on Broadway, very high end." She was gushing to the consultant about her destination wedding in Santorini. 60 guests, private villa, next spring. The room seemed to tilt slightly. "That's expensive." "500,000 minimum, I'd guess." My drink turned bitter in my mouth. "That doesn't make sense. She's always broke. She was just asking me to cover her share of the property taxes last month." Jenna raised an eyebrow. "Maybe she got a sudden windfall." "Or maybe," I said slowly, "the beach house doesn't actually need repairs." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing my mother's face at the will reading, hearing her voice on the phone. "We need to discuss finances. It's important." At 3 a.m., I opened my laptop and logged into the family trust account Dad had set up for the beach house maintenance. I still had access as a co-trustee, something my mother occasionally found inconvenient but couldn't change without legal action. What I found made my hands shake. Three large withdrawals over the past 4 months, totaling $475,000, all authorized by my mother, all transferred to a separate account, one with Ashley's name on it. They were stealing from the trust to pay for Ashley's wedding, a wedding no one had bothered to mention to me. I dug deeper: credit card statements, Venmo transactions, a paper trail of deception so blatant it was almost insulting. They hadn't even tried to hide it well, assuming I would never check, never question. Something cold and clarifying washed over me. This wasn't just about money. This was about a lifetime of being used, taken for granted, manipulated. This was about my father's final wish being disregarded. I closed my laptop and stared into the darkness of my bedroom. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel hurt or betrayed or sad. I felt nothing, and it was liberating. The next morning, I called my therapist, Dr. Winters, and scheduled an emergency session. I need to set boundaries with my family, I told her, sitting rigidly in her comfortable office. Hard ones. She nodded, familiar with my history. What's changed, Mia? I explained what I'd discovered, watching her expression shift from concern to something harder. They've been gaslit you your entire life, she said finally. Your feelings, your perceptions, they've consistently undermined them. That's emotional abuse. The word abuse hung in the air between us. I'd never applied it to my situation before. It seemed reserved for more obvious trauma, not the death by 1,000 cuts I'd experienced. What do I do? I asked. What do you want to do? The answer came with surprising clarity. I want them to face what they've done, not just apologize, really face it, and I want my father's wishes respected. Dr. Winters leaned forward. Then you'll need evidence, boundaries, and support. And Mia, this won't feel good. Confronting family rarely does, but it might be necessary for your healing. I nodded, already mentally preparing for battle. Over the next week, I gathered evidence methodically, the way I would for a financial audit at work: bank statements, trust documents, email correspondence, text messages. I created a timeline of deception dating back years, not just the recent wedding fund theft, but patterns of financial and emotional manipulation that had shaped our family dynamics. I consulted a lawyer specializing in trust law who confirmed my suspicions. What my mother and sister were doing wasn't just unethical, it was illegal. You could pursue criminal charges, he told me. At minimum, you could have your mother removed as trustee. The power of that statement was dizzying. For so long, I'd been the one who accommodated, who understood, who made excuses for their behavior. The idea that I could hold them accountable, legally accountable, shifted something fundamental in me. But first, I would give them one chance to make it right. I called my mother on a Wednesday evening, keeping my voice neutral despite the adrenaline coursing through me. About that financial meeting, let's do it at the beach house this weekend. I think we need to discuss the trust in person. The beach house, but it's off-season and with the repairs. I insist, I said, surprised at how firm my voice sounded. I'll handle the arrangements. Let's say Saturday at 10 a.m. I called Ashley next. She was distracted, offering vague excuses about being super busy. It's about Dad's trust, I said. Mom will be there. A pause: is everything okay? We'll discuss it Saturday. Then I called my two brothers, Michael and James. As teenagers, they'd learned to follow Mom and Ashley's lead in our family dynamics. Now in their late 20s, they were still caught in the same patterns. They agreed to come, curious about my unusually assertive tone. On Friday, I drove the 4 hours to Nantucket, watching the coastline emerge through my windshield. The beach house stood just as it always had, a sprawling, weathered gray structure facing the Atlantic. No construction equipment, no workers, no signs of the supposed urgent repairs. I walked the property carefully, taking pictures. The roof was in perfect condition. It had been replaced just 2 years ago. The foundation was solid. Even the deck, which my mother had specifically mentioned needed to be rebuilt, showed only normal wear. That night, I slept in my childhood bedroom, surrounded by memories. I should have felt nervous about the confrontation to come, but instead I felt calm, prepared. For once, I wasn't worried about managing my family's emotions. I was focused on the truth. By 9:30 the next morning, I had set up the dining room with precision, 5 folders laid out at each place setting. coffee and pastries arranged as if this were any normal family gathering, my laptop open to a presentation I'd prepared. My mother arrived first, immaculately dressed as always, her critical gaze sweeping the room for anything out of place. Mia, darling, this is a lovely setup, but I still think we could have done this in Denver. I smiled pleasantly. I wanted to see the repair situation for myself. Something flickered across her face, too quick to identify. Well, most of the issues aren't visible to the untrained eye. My brothers arrived together, followed shortly by Ashley, who looked distinctly uncomfortable. She was wearing a massive emerald engagement ring I'd never seen before. Beautiful ring, I said as she sat down. New. She twisted it nervously. Jason proposed last month. I was going to tell you, but things have been crazy with planning. I'm sure they have been, I replied, pouring coffee for everyone as if we were about to have a pleasant family brunch instead of the reckoning I had planned. Once everyone was settled, I closed the dining room doors and took my seat at the head of the table, my father's old place. My mother frowned but said nothing. Thank you all for coming, I began, my voice steady. I called this meeting because there are some discrepancies in the trust finances that we need to address. My mother's spine straightened. What discrepancies? Let's start with the beach house repairs, I said, opening my laptop and turning it to face them. According to Mom, we need approximately $500,000 for urgent structural work, yet when I had 3 contractors inspect the property this week, they found nothing requiring immediate attention. Their reports are in your folders. Ashley's face had gone pale. Michael and James exchanged confused glances. Furthermore, I continued, clicking to the next slide, I've documented $475,000 in unauthorized withdrawals from the trust over the past 4 months, all transferred to an account in Ashley's name, all approved by Mom. Now wait just a minute, my mother began, but I held up my hand. I'm not finished. My voice remained calm, detached almost. Ashley, would you like to explain to Michael and James what that money is actually being used for? Her eyes darted to our mother, who gave an almost imperceptible shake of her head. Don't look at her, I said quietly. For once in your life, Ashley, take responsibility for your actions. It's for my wedding, she whispered, but Mom said it was okay, that we'd replace the money before anyone noticed. Michael's eyes widened. Wait, you're spending $500,000 on a wedding, when the trust is supposed to maintain the house for all of us. It's more complicated than that, my mother interjected sharply. Your father would have wanted Ashley to have a beautiful wedding. Mia, you're making this sound so sordid when it's simply a family matter. A family matter, I repeated. Like when you convinced me to contribute my bonus to the trust last year for tax purposes, or when you told me Ashley couldn't afford her share of the property taxes, so I covered her portion too. I clicked to the next slide, a detailed accounting of everything I'd contributed to family expenses over the past 5 years. The total was staggering even to me. This isn't just about the wedding money, I said. This is about a pattern. Dad left me my inheritance separately because he knew how this family operates. He was trying to protect me, but I still fell for it again and again. James looked genuinely shocked. Mia, I had no idea you were covering so much. Of course you didn't. No one was supposed to know. I was just the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who would always step in to fix everything. My mother's face had hardened into a mask I recognized from childhood, the expression that preceded her most cutting remarks. You've always been so dramatic, Mia, so quick to feel slighted. Your father understood Ashley's special needs. She's not as capable as you are. Ashley flinched at this assessment, which might have given me satisfaction once. Now I just felt tired. That's the story you've always told, isn't it? Ashley needs more. Ashley deserves special treatment. Meanwhile, I've been managing $1 million portfolios for clients since I was 26, but somehow I'm still treated like the family ATM. I opened the folders in front of each of them. You each have copies of everything I've found: bank statements, trust documents, legal opinions. I've also included 3 options for how we proceed. I looked directly at my mother, holding her gaze. Option 1, you and Ashley return every penny taken from the trust with interest. You both resign as trustees, and I take over management of the trust as Dad originally intended. The matter stays private. My mother's knuckles whitened around her coffee cup, and the other options. Option 2, I pursue civil action to recover the funds and have you removed as trustee. This becomes a matter of public record. Ashley made a small, distressed sound. Mia, please. Option 3, I continued, ignoring her. I file criminal charges for trust fraud and embezzlement, which the district attorney assures me is a strong case given the evidence. You would both face potential jail time. Silence fell over the table. Outside, waves crashed against the shore, the rhythm of my childhood summers, now soundtrack to this family implosion. You wouldn't dare, my mother finally said, but her voice lacked conviction. 6 months ago, you would have been right, I admitted. But things change, people change, I've had enough. Michael cleared his throat. For what it's worth, I think option 1 is reasonable, more than reasonable. James nodded in agreement, looking at our mother with new eyes. Ashley's wedding is in 4 months, my mother said, as if this were a relevant counterargument. We can't possibly return the money that quickly. Plans have been made, deposits paid. I shrugged. Cancel it, downsize, take out a loan. That's not my problem. How can you be so cold? Ashley's eyes filled with tears. This is my dream wedding we're talking about. And that was Dad's money you stole, I replied evenly. Money he worked his entire life to save. Money that was meant to maintain this house for all of us, the house he loved. The house where he wanted his grandchildren to spend their summers someday. I stood up, gathering my materials. You have until Monday to decide. If I don't hear from you by noon, I'll proceed with option 2. My mother stood as well, her composure finally cracking. After everything I've done for you. What exactly have you done for me, Mom? Besides teach me that my feelings don't matter, that my achievements are expected while Ashley's are exceptional, that my role in this family is to give and never ask for anything in return. For the first time in my life, I saw my mother speechless. She had no ready answer, no manipulation tactic to deploy. The truth had rendered her weapons useless. I walked to the door, then turned back one last time. I loved this family. I would have done anything for all of you, but I won't be your victim anymore. The drive back to Denver was long but clarifying. With each mile, I felt the weight of obligation lifting. Whatever they decided, I had spoken my truth. I had stood up for myself and for what my father had wanted. The rest was up to them. Monday came. At 11:45 a.m., my phone rang, my mother's number. We'll return the money, she said without preamble. All of it, and we'll step down as trustees. Her voice sounded different, smaller somehow. I wondered if this was what she had always feared most, being seen for who she really was, not who she pretended to be. I'll have the paperwork drawn up, I replied. Mia, she hesitated, this family needs you. It was the closest thing to an apology I was likely to get. Once, it would have been enough to pull me back into their orbit, to resume my role as the dutiful daughter. No, I said gently, what this family needs is to learn how to function without using me as a crutch. I'll manage the trust because it's what Dad wanted, but beyond that, I need space, a lot of it. For how long? I don't know, maybe forever. After we hung up, I sat at my desk, staring out at the Denver skyline. The revenge I'd planned, the confrontation, the evidence, the ultimatum had worked. I had won, but victory felt different than I'd imagined. Not triumphant, not vindicated, just free. My phone buzzed with a text from Jenna, drinks tonight to celebrate your Independence Day. I smiled and typed back, absolutely, I'm buying. 6 months later, I hosted a small gathering at my new beach house, not the family property, but a modest place of my own, further up the coast. Jenna was there, along with colleagues who had become friends and neighbors who had quickly become like family. My mother had called twice in those months, stilted, awkward conversations that revealed how little we knew each other without the dynamics of obligation and manipulation. Ashley had sent a wedding invitation, downgraded to a local ceremony, which I politely declined. My brothers visited occasionally, our relationship slowly rebuilding on more equal footing. The trust was healthy again, the beach house properly maintained. I managed it efficiently but distantly, treating it as the business matter it should have always been. That evening, as my guests mingled on the deck overlooking the water, Dr. Winters pulled me aside. How does it feel, she asked, living without that burden? I considered the question carefully, like I'm finally the protagonist in my own life story, not a supporting character in someone else's. She nodded approvingly. That's what boundaries give us, the space to become ourselves. As the sun set over the Atlantic, casting long golden shadows across my new home, I raised a glass to my guests. To new beginnings, I said, and to myself silently to breaking free.